On the day of his middle school graduation, Mirai Kakehashi loses the will to live and decides to commit suicide by jumping off a tower block. However, his life is suddenly spared by special rank angel Nasse, who is already aware that Mirai's parents and younger brother Akira died in a car accident before Mirai was taken in by his abusive aunt and uncle. Nasse offers Mirai the hope of freedom with wings and the hope of love with arrows as angel tools, though Mirai initially rejects the offer until he uses his wings. After Nasse shockingly reveals that Mirai's parents and Akira were murdered by Mirai's aunt and uncle, Mirai later shoots his red arrow at his aunt in order to verify the greedy truth. Mirai accidentally compels his aunt to stab herself to death right in front of his uncle. 3 days later, Mirai tells Nasse that he wants ordinary happiness, desiring enough money to improve his standard of living. Suggesting that Mirai could shoot his white arrow at his uncle in order to ensure a painless death, Nasse explains that there are currently 13 god candidates all competing to become the successor and each having their own angel. Mirai wants to enroll in high school. After the news reports that failed comedian Tonma Rodriguez is polyamorous, Mirai realizes that Tonma is a god candidate who shot his red arrow at multiple women. In a parking garage, masked superhero Metropoliman, who is also a god candidate, shoots his white arrow at Tonma inside a limo. Second-rank angel Luda is out of the running as he carries Tonma to the celestial realm, home to the angels. After shooting his red arrow in order to have his uncle surrender to the police, Mirai is shocked upon witnessing a public broadcast of a bank robbery, where Metropoliman shoots his red arrows to halt the riot police before shooting his red and white arrows to thwart and kill 2 bank robbers. Metropoliman blatantly proclaims that he plans to kill the other god candidates by any means necessary, having already killed one of them. Upon returning home, a doubtful Mirai starts to understand his role as a god candidate and the ranks of the angels. Despite all the warnings, Mirai still decides to attend his first day of class at high school while advising Nasse to stay home. After seeing the second-rank angel Revel flying above the high school, Mirai is shot with a red arrow from behind by his childhood friend and classmate Saki Hanakego. As Mirai meets up with Saki in her bedroom, Revel confirms that Mirai is a god candidate and that Nasse is a special rank angel. After teaching Mirai to link with Saki before using his wings, Revel explains that Metropoliman poses as a tabloid superhero and plans to kill the other god candidates. As Mirai is willing to sacrifice himself in order to protect Saki, Nasse luckily finds him and explains that angel tools can be taken or transferred if a god candidate dies. Meanwhile, Metropoliman speaks with his special rank angel Miza, who believes that the other god candidates are afraid of being killed. After 33 days, the effects of Saki's red arrow wears off on Mirai, who remains in love with Saki. Metropoliman publicly announces that he wants to establish a peaceful alliance by inviting the other god candidates at a ballpark called the Ginbo Stadium. Mirai and Saki arrive at the Ginbo Stadium on high alert as Metropoliman makes a dramatic entrance on the pitcher's mound. Metro Blue and Metro Yellow, 2 god candidates, suddenly arrive at the Ginbo Stadium and challenge Metropoliman to a duel. In the past, Shogo Hatakeyama and Saburo Tabuchi failed their college entrance exam and attempted to commit suicide via drug overdose. After being saved by first-rank angels Emika and Egura, Shogo and Saburo assumed the identities of Metro Blue and Metro Yellow. In the present, the real Metropoliman briefly appears on the Jumbotron, explaining that the fake Metropoliman is an ordinary human shot with a red arrow. A young girl named Chio Nakayama, another god candidate, appears with second-rank angel Jamie and asks to join Shogo and Saburo. However, the real Metropoliman swiftly shoots his red arrow at Chio before leaving again. Meanwhile, Mirai and Saki sit idly by while struggling to act upon the situation. Switching places with the fake Metropoliman after bribing 2 cosplayers named Metro Pink and Metro Green as pawns for distraction, the real Metropoliman then shoots his white arrow at Shogo and his red arrow at Saburo. After handcuffing Saburo and Chio together to the stands, Metropoliman shoots his white arrow at Saburo, making Chio rather defenseless. Just when Metropoliman shoots his white arrow at Chio, Nasse arrives at the scene and urges the remaining god candidates to leave the Ginbo Stadium with the ordinary humans. Mirai and Saki head back to Saki's bedroom during a downpour. Revel knows that Metropoliman is capable of outsmarting the police, while Nasse deduces that Mirai will not gain happiness from killing Metropoliman. Nanato Mukado, another god candidate, suddenly appears from outside the window. He suffers from terminal cancer, having previously met first-rank angel Barrett in a hospital. Furthermore, he provided for his pregnant wife Aya and daughter Nanika after shooting his red arrows at rich people, and he sought to find the other god candidates at the Ginbo Stadium after shooting his red arrows at detectives. Mirai and Saki agree to form an alliance with Nanato, revealed as a product planner for an apparel company. The next day, Kanade Yuryu, implied to be Metropoliman, and his classmate Mizukiyo Minamikawa discuss their wishes after class while watching Mizukiyo's crush Sayuri during archery practice. Kanade returns to his home, where he brings flowers to his deceased younger sister Rei Yuryu, who is being kept in a freeze chamber. The news reports that middle school girl and amateur teen model Mimamai Masurin Yamada has escaped juvenile detention after being convicted as a serial killer 2 years ago. Mirai, Saki and Nanato deduce that Metropoliman shot his red arrow at Masurin before lending her a red arrow and wings so she could escape and target other female victims. Metropoliman has acquired 3 red arrows and 3 wings from the previously eliminated god candidates. Nanato states that the best option for Mirai is to kill Metropoliman with a white arrow, though Mirai may not have the courage to do this. The news later reports that the body of middle schoolgirl Hikari Yaishir was discovered on the rooftop of the Grand Tower, where her common carotid artery and both wrists were slashed by a sharp blade. Realizing that Masurin is located hovering above the Grand Tower, Nanato equips Mirai with a red motorsport costume, while Saki holds down the fort in her bedroom. If Metropoliman does not show up at the Grand Tower, then Nanato will have no choice but to kill Masurin. Nanato confronts Masurin on the rooftop of the Grand Tower, while Mirai is on standby at a nearby rooftop. Just as Nanato realizes that he fell right into a trap, Metropoliman remotely detonates the rooftop of the Grand Tower, killing Masurin. Mirai luckily saves Nanato from plummeting to the ground. Metropoliman appears from the rising smoke behind Mirai, who finally confronts Metropoliman for his sinister methods of eliminating the competition by sacrificing ordinary humans. Despite Metropoliman unveiling that he has planted a second bomb in another location, Nanato calls this bluff and proceeds to stop Metropoliman. As Metropoliman prepares to shoot a white arrow at Nanato, Mirai deflects it with a red arrow. Metropoliman is then recklessly attacked by Mirai with his red arrow, though Mirai is forced to dodge Metropoliman with his white arrow at high speeds. Nanato tries to restrain Metropoliman with firearms, though Mirai holds back from shooting his red arrow after seeing a glimpse of Metropoliman's face. Metropoliman then quickly evades the area. Returning to Saki's bedroom, Mirai admits to Saki and Nanato of being a coward since he is not cut out for battle, though he desires to have a normal life instead of being a god candidate. Nanato learns that Saki attempted to commit suicide by drowning at sea prior to meeting Revel. Meanwhile, Mizukiyo speculates that Kanade is really Metropoliman. Later at night, Saki invites Mirai to sleep with her in bed. Saki admits that she wants to die after viewing Mirai as her bodyguard rather than her ally. Recalling when Mirai gave her a spotted yellow ladybug on a 4-leaf clover to symbolize their everlasting friendship since childhood, Saki felt ashamed that she used to bully Mirai after his parents died. She also witnessed him jumping off the tower block on the day of the middle school graduation, which compelled her to drown herself at sea. After Saki requests Mirai to kill her, he takes her to the sky, convincing her to regain her will to live. The next day, Saki has a new attitude as she tells Mirai and Nanato that their meeting place will be relocated inside a church instead of her bedroom. Barrett then informs Saki about the 4 methods on how to acquire wings involving a previously eliminated god candidate, though a safer option is if Revel could be promoted as a first-rank angel. A sword wielder named Hajime Sokatani, another god candidate, kills a detective who was previously shot with a red arrow. At the church, Nanato equips Saki with a yellow motorsport costume. After reclaiming his red arrow, Nanato deduces that the detective is dead. Approaching Nanato's house, Mirai briefly encounters Hajime, while Nanato eventually finds out that Aya and Nanika have been abducted. In the past, Hajime was poor and ugly during childhood. When his mother committed suicide by hanging, Hajime nearly followed suit until meeting first-rank angel Balta. Hajime became obsessed with Metropoliman, who is his polar opposite. Despite obtaining wealth before getting cosmetic facial surgery and a new hairdo, he still had poor communication skills. When the news reported the incident at the Grand Tower, Hajime eventually learned of Kanade's identity as Metropoliman, wishing to become his loyal subordinate. At a dance studio, Hajime remotely communicated with Kanade, who implored Hajime to capture another god candidate. In the present, Nanato is contacted by Kanade, who says that Aya and Nanika are being held hostage at the abandoned Minamino amusement park. Mirai and Nanato head towards Minamino amusement park, while Saki stays behind at the church. Intent on rescuing Aya and Nanika, Nanato walks inside a house of mirrors, though this a trap set by Hajime. After being surrounded by Metropoliman and Hajime, Mirai willingly enters the house of mirrors, instructing Nanato that they must use their wings to fly inside the house of mirrors while carrying Aya and Nanika in order to avoid being seen from the outside. As Metropoliman leaves leaves Hajime to finish the job, Mirai and Nanato try to trick Hajime into thinking that they managed to escape without being seen. At the church, Saki sees herself as useless since she cannot fight without wings. Upon reflecting his own powerlessness, Revel sheds tears for the first time. Due to this, Revel is promoted as a first-rank angel, and Saki is granted her own wings. As Saki arrives at Minamino Amusement Park, she shoots her red arrow at Hajime, while Mirai and Nanato are unaware of what is happening outside. Hajime experiences love for the first time as he struggles with his loyalty towards Metropoliman. Saki compels Hajime to rescue her friends from the House of Mirrors. Defying Metropoliman's orders, Hajime finally values human life and punctures the glass dome. Metropoliman suddenly arrives with his underlings, former military servant Ruji Bakamatsu, pharmaceutical researcher Fuyuko Kohinata, and masked boy Susumu Yuto. Hajime protects Saki, while Mirai and Nanato break through the glass dome with Aya and Nanika in tow. Aya and Nanika are each taken back to the church by Saki, who soon learns that Hajime would kill anyone for her. Mirai, Saki and Nanato shoot red arrows at each other as a bidding strategy. After Hajime dodges Ruji's gunfire, Mirai and Saki restrain Ruji, allowing Hajime to cut off Ruji's right arm. As Fuyuko threatens to release an airborne virus capable of killing millions of people, Metropoliman forces Mirai to be the first test subject for an untested drug capable of melting someone. Mirai approach Fuyuko on the Ferris wheel, while Saki, Nanato and Hajime are helpless to stop Mirai. As Fuyuko prepares to inject Mirai with the untested drug, Mirai grabs Fuyuko by the hand before shooting a white arrow at the airborne virus moments after it is released. Now having the best opportunity to kill Fuyuko with his white arrow, Mirai internally struggles with achieving happiness by attempting murder. A depleted Nanato tries to aim a rifle at Metropoliman as a distraction. Metropoliman shoots his white arrow while Fuyuko releases 3 syringes containing the untested drug, both aimed at Mirai. Saki shields Mirai, which redirects the white arrow back to Metropoliman's possession. After severing 2 syringes, Hajime is consequently pierced by the 3rd syringe, though he still manages to kill Fuyuko with his sword before melting to death. As Mirai and Saki mourns the death of Hajime, Metropoliman scoffs at the fact that Hajime lived an insignificant life similar to a cockroach. Susumu chickens out of the battle after having witnessed everything, while Nanato is down for the count. Believing that Metropoliman is lower than a cockroach, Mirai preserves his happiness by planning to only shoot red arrows at Metropoliman. Agreeing to mutual combat on the ground, Mirai is armed with red arrows and Metropoliman is armed with white arrows as they gradually move closer to each other while taking turns shooting and dodging. As their duel unfolds, Metropoliman reflects his own personal values. In the past, Kanade displayed his affection for Rei by decorating her bedroom with flowers and aiding her in the tennis court due to their socio-economic status. Rei was invited to go on a date with a boy, but a possessive Kanade begged Rei to stay. Rei stumbled and fell off the balcony, suffering a cerebral contusion from hitting her head on a stone before being cushioned by the flowers. After keeping Rei's corpse in a freeze chamber, Kanade met Maiza for the first time. In the present, Susumu secretly exposes the duel to the public via live streaming, though the location remains censored. Metropoliman proclaims that he will eliminate poverty and inequality if he becomes the successor, though this means that the poor and ugly will be killed. As Mirai and Metropoliman inch even closer, Metropoliman prepares to make an underhanded move. Initially believing that he is not fighting the real Metropoliman, Mirai has a sense of clarity when Metropoliman briefly shows his face as Kanade. Mirai suddenly charges with his red arrow at Metropoliman, but it is revealed that Metropoliman was previously shot with a red arrow by someone else. In order to prevent Metropoliman from shooting his white arrow, Mirai uses his wings to block Metropoliman's field of vision and grabs onto Metropoliman's right hand. Instead, Metropoliman uses his left hand to stab Mirai, but Mirai's red motorsport costume proves to be impenetrable. Saki then grabs onto Metropoliman's left hand, allowing Mirai and Saki to link together while binding Metropoliman. Making peace with himself as being a hero, Nanato uses his remaining strength to walk with his rifle towards Metropoliman, who confesses that he has been fighting in honor of Rei. As Nanato pulls the trigger, Metropoliman is finally shot to death, having nowhere to run or hide. Mirai and Saki take Nanato to the hospital, where Nanato eventually succumbs to his terminal cancer. Before carrying Nanato to the celestial realm, Barrett gives Nanato's red arrow and wings to Saki. Engaged detectives Masaya Hoshi and Manami Yumiki conduct an investigation on the identities of the remaining god candidates after the death of Kanade. Mirai and Saki are unaware that Kanade was previously shot with a red arrow by Susumu, who compelled Kanade to target Mirai in the first place. After reviewing that Saki has 3 red arrows and 3 wings, Mirai also racks his brain over which of the other 4 remaining god candidates took Kanade's acquired 4 wings, 4 red arrows and 1 white arrow. Mirai and Saki eat curry for breakfast. The 6 remaining angels have a meeting since half of the god candidates have been eliminated. While eating egg sandwiches for lunch, Mirai and Saki learn that Susumu publicly exposed himself as a god candidate and admitted to broadcasting Metropoliman's defeat. After explaining the role of the god candidates, Susumu says that he lived a lonely life and attempted to overdose on sleeping pills prior to meeting first-rank angel Penema. Having felt exhilarated after witnessing the duel between Mirai and Metropoliman at Minamino Amusement Park, Susumu encourages the public to track down the remaining god candidates and vote for whoever should become the successor. Susumu publicly nominates Mirai to become the successor. On a tropical island, a god candidate named Yuri Temari learns from her second-rank angel Yazali that the potential successor might make the god candidate cease to exist. Still affected by Mirai's previously shot red arrow, Saki wishes to run away with Mirai, though he reassures her that their real identities will not be discovered since they were only seen in their motorsport costumes. Later on, Masaya locates Mirai, though Saki accidentally shoots her red arrow at Manami. Masaya wishes to protect instead of capture Mirai and Saki, while Manami had figured out their real identities. Mirai and Saki are brought to Masaya and Manami's apartment and are given secure smartphones, eventually convincing Mirai and Saki to collaborate with Masaya and Manami. After Masaya and Manami begin to understand the role of the god candidates, it is revealed that Yuri has been already captured. Saki also equips Manami with wings and a red arrow. They look further into Mizukiyo, who recently started dating Sayuri shortly after Kanade's death. Mirai and Saki confront Mizukiyo in a park, in which Mirai shoots his red arrow at Mizukiyo, compelling Mizukiyo to be an ally. After Mirai prevents Shuji Nakami, another god candidate, from compelling his older brother Osamu to commit suicide in their bedroom, Mizukiyo admits that he lied about being a god candidate after first-rank angel Aguro appears behind Shuji. Having a strong belief in euthanasia, Shuji gradually compelled his hospitalized grandfather, divorced father and cheating mother to die peacefully after shooting his red arrow at each of them. After Mizukiyo puts in his 2 cents by explaining his prior friendship with Kanade, a somewhat convinced Shuji refrains from compelling Osamu to commit suicide. Mirai, Saki and Mizukiyo bring Shuji and Osamu to Masaya and Manami's apartment. There is still one god candidate yet to be identified. Shuji says that people are the result of worldly passions fueled by desire, though Masaya says that desires make people happy. After making a public appearance in their motorsport costumes, Mirai and Saki meet with Susumu in the atmosphere, persuading him to help them identify the last god candidate. Meanwhile, Revel relays this information to Yuri, who is being held in protective custody. With some discreet help from Masaya and Manami, Yuri manages to escape from being held in protective custody. In the woods, Susumi transfers wings to Yuri, who goes with Mirai and Saki to Masaya and Manami's apartment. Aguro explains the powerful role of the successor, who will reside in the celestial realm with the angels and watch over the humans on Earth. Disagreeing with Shuji's idealism of encouraging suicide, Mirai believes in providing hope instead. Susumu remotely suggests to vote for whoever should become the successor, and the majority decide to vote for Shuji. Elsewhere, Professor Emeritus Gaku Yanida, another god candidate, talks to Special Rank Angel Muni about eating his final dinner while reflecting that his despair for humanity is paradoxically his aspiration for humanity. Mizukiyo and Osamu stay with Masaya and Manami. Mirai, Saki, Susumu, Yuri and Shuji make a public appearance in Yurakucho, where they are met by Muni. However, Gaku will not show himself until the others share their thoughts with Muni on whoever should become the successor. When military helicopters approach Mirai, Saki, Susumu, Yuri and Shuji, Gaku contacts Prime Minister Suzuki, urging him to refrain from attacking the other god candidates. Suzuki then orders the military helicopters to withdraw. Each of them broadcast their worldview in becoming the successor. This includes euthanasia for Shuji, hedonism for Yuri, leisure for Susumu, happiness for Saki and Nixon for Mirai. As Mirai, Saki, Susumu, Yuri and Shuji regroup back at Yurakucho, Gaku finally shows himself as the last god candidate. Theorizing that humanity invented the concept of a divine entity, Gaku reveals that he has previously written about denying the existence of spirits and souls, which cannot be proven through scientific observation. Proclaiming that the age of prayers has now come to an end, Gaku publicly debunks the concept of a divine entity, referring to it as a fading creature. Meanwhile, military snipers have targeted the 6 remaining god candidates from the shadows. After Gaku believes that humanity would be better off without a successor, Shuji opts to side with Gaku. Despite this, a determined Mirai still decides that he wants to become the successor. One of the military snipers successfully hits Susumu, causing the others to flee from the scene. Gaku shoots his white arrow at Susumu, taking Susumu's acquired arrows and wings while Shuji watches in awe. Mirai, Saki and Yuri retreat back to Masaya and Manami's apartment. For his safety, Gaku shoots his red arrow at Shuji. After Masaya learns that Gaku is the last god candidate, Manami shoots her red arrow at Masaya. Mirai, Saki and Yuri are brought by Masaya and Manami to an emergency shelter. Masaya reveals that Gaku has won Nobel Prizes in physics and in literature after choosing to become a high school dropout in order to study on his own and avoid interpersonal relationships. Meanwhile, Shuji learns that Gaku agreed to become a god candidate so that he would possibly experience the afterlife. Gaku recalls that he first met Muni after he attempted to commit suicide via drug overdose due to the overwhelming publicity of his scientific research. Placed in a tough situation, Gaku agrees to lend a white arrow to Shuji after Aguro divulges that Nasse has the ability to directly interact with Mirai. The public greatly prefers Gaku over Yuri as the successor. The effects of Saki's red arrows wear off on Masaya and Manami. As per Gaku's request, Suzuki publicly announces that the new national stadium will be a secure venue for the god candidates to hold a meeting in 5 days. Mirai, Saki and Yuri discuss that now only 10% of the world population still believe in a divine entity. At night, Mizukiyo and Sayuri witness Mirai and Saki using their wings in the sky, though perceived as shooting stars. Gaku and Shuji enjoy a Chateaubriand during their feast with Suzuki. At sunrise, Mirai and Saki go on the rooftop of the tower block, where Saki confesses her love to Mirai. On the day of the meeting, Mirai, Saki, Yuri, Masaya and Manami arrive at the new national stadium, where Gaku and Shuji are waiting. Masaya tries to reason with Gaku, who reveals that he overcame his anthropophobia despite his arrogance. Thanks to an experiment previously conducted on suicidal people deep in the woods, Gaku has figured out a way so that the 5 remaining god candidates would die almost simultaneously without a successor being chosen. Believing that humans should decide how humanity ends, Gaku explains that all of humanity would lose the will to live due to the concept of time. With Masaya acting as a witness, Mirai and Gaku have a private conversation, while Saki, Yuri, Manami and Shuji temporarily leave the new national stadium. Mirai firmly desires to preserve happiness by saving human lives. This spurs mixed reactions from the public. Mirai gains the resolve to aim his white arrow at Gaku, while Saki, Yuri and Manami find themselves held captive by Shuji, who aims his white arrow at Saki. As Mirai realizes that humanity would face extinction due to scientific progress, Gaku explains that the future is already predetermined in the past, though Mirai believes that the future is the product of the present. After 28 seconds have passed, Mirai decides that he will not become the successor. Gaku calls out Mirai for being willing to forsake millions of lives in order to save Saki, though Mirai notes that Saki is the most important person to him. After another 28 seconds have passed, Mirai chooses to sacrifice himself for Saki as Gaku shoots a white arrow at Mirai. Nasse suddenly swoops in and saves Mirai from dying, though she is consequently demoted as a second-rank angel, while Masaya catches Mirai from plummeting to the ground. Meanwhile, Saki, Yuri and Manami deduce that Shuji may not have the resolve to kill someone who wants to live. When Masaya finally puts down Mirai on the ground, Gaku shoots his white arrow at Mirai, who is then saved by the timely arrival of Saki. Manami returns with Shuji at the new national stadium, but Yuri fails to initiate a sneak attack when Nasse swoops in to save Gaku. Nasse is surprisingly promoted as a special rank angel. It is revealed that Shuji previously released Saki, Yuri and Manami before lending his white arrow to Yuri. Although Gaku thinks that he is not a genius, the public says otherwise. As it is concluded that happiness can only be achieved through others, Gaku prepares to commit suicide. However, it is unanimously decided that Shuji will become the successor, thus ending the selection process. Upon consent, the memories of Masaya, Manami and Yuri are erased, while the memories of Mirai, Saki and Gaku are retained. Ascending into the celestial realm, where time moves slower than on Earth, Shuji realizes that God is beginning to fuse with him. Yuri is shown to be the assistant of Gaku, who is analyzing the effects of the red arrow that Shuji left behind, but to no avail. Deciding to run a flower shop that sells 4-leaf clovers, Mirai and Saki notably become an engaged couple before getting married at the church. Nasse tells Shuji that the other angels are worried about him. 6 years have passed on Earth, and the handful of people that Shuji knew are living happy lives. However, Shuji has an epiphany after seeing so many people greatly divided in socioeconomic status. Shuji then shoots himself with a white arrow. This causes the celestial realm and everything in it to gradually vanish. All living beings on Earth also gradually vanish, as Mirai and Saki accept their fate and die happily together. With Earth left as a barren wasteland, an endless number of unknown life forms from outer space primarily wonder if they should seed another god, though they ultimately declare that everyone desires death. Thanks for watching. Don't forget to subscribe to the channel and put a like.